Hello, everyone. My name is Patricia Bedut. I am Curriculum Manager for Supported Learning, and I will be with you today for this webinar. Unfortunately, I can't see any of you, so it's a bit of a strange experience because I can only see myself on the screen, but I hope you will enjoy the event. I work for Supported Learning, and we are part of Barnet and Southgate College. We are based at Southgate campus, and the supported learning department is solely based at Southgate. The head of the department is Julie Murphy, and my colleague Azima is clinical and operations manager. She's responsible for managing our clinical staff and also our study support assistants, so our support staff. So you can now see the first slide. I just wanted to add as well that obviously because of COVID, we haven't had any visitors on site and we haven't had any on-site open days, but actually we will have an open day on Saturday, the 20th of November. So if any of you wanted to book an on-site visit, please do it via our website. The information can be found on Barnet Southgate College website. Now, for those of you who may have already seen the place or may not wish to sort of come, I will talk you through and show you some slides. Can I just also add that at the end, I will try to be sort of quite brief in what I'm saying and leave at least 20 minutes for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. So as I mentioned before, we are based at Southgate campus, and what you are really seeing now is the building of the LLDD center, which is situated at the back of the campus. Now, we are using the building 100% as supported learning, but our students also use other classrooms in other buildings. And you can see the little bit of that building on my right-hand side. We call it E-block, and that's where classrooms for our students are situated as well. Pre-COVID, we used really a lot of classrooms across the whole campus, but obviously because of pandemic, we had to remain in a bubble, so we sort of were limited to certain classrooms. And this year, although we are not in a bubble anymore, but we do have our classrooms there. Sorry, I don't know why I can't actually move my slides, and I am technically challenged. So I hope my colleague Nick is helping me. So this is what you can see right now is the entrance to the center. So one thing to say that the center is quite open and it's not secure in a sense that we have swipe systems, but these swipes are available for staff and students. So as you enter the center, you will see the atrium area. This is where a lot of sort of breaks are spent by students. Students also have their lunches here. The green area that you can see near the board that says Barnet and Southgate College is actually our little enterprise. It used to be called Munchbox, but at the moment the students voted and it's called Stir It Up. So the majority vote ruled, and that's where students, catering students, produce food and sell it to staff and students. So this is our atrium area, and this is what you will see as you enter in. All the classrooms are situated on the first floor, whereas on the ground floor, you will, to my right, you will have classrooms that are used by only really profound and multiple learning difficulty students. And on what's my left, there are kitchens and there is also the sports hall. Now, our classrooms look very, very similar. So all classrooms will look like the classroom you just see. There are computers. In some classrooms, we have laptops. The only difference between, I suppose, classrooms on the first floor and the ground floor, where profound and multiple learning difficulty students are based, is that we will have less tables, or we will have more adjustable tables because of obviously students being in wheelchairs and needing slightly different access. But all the classrooms look very, very similar. These are the classrooms in the center. Now, our curriculum, we offer sensory curriculum to our complex needs students. And so I would say that the center roughly caters for about 190 to 200 students. I would say that there are broadly two subdivisions to that. So we have what we call complex needs students. So we are looking here at students with profound learning difficulties, physical disabilities, severe learning difficulties, and MLD sub-provision, which is quite broad as well in terms of needs. So within that provision, we have students who have severe learning difficulties, from moderate learning difficulties and up to sort of perhaps mild learning difficulties. Now, the students who are within complex needs provision, their curriculum is sensory, and obviously we accept that their needs are such that they may never be able to progress to mainstream provision. But the idea is that we are preparing for them for adulthood, independence, and the aim of the sessions really that they have is ability to make choices, use communication devices, and really express their wishes and views as far as they can do it. Now, we have, obviously I showed you, you saw the classroom in a previous slide. This slide shows you our dance and drama studio. Now, dance and drama studio is used by performing arts students, but also some of students within complex needs and MLD provision. They will also have dance and drama on the timetable. Not every group has it, but some of the groups do have classes in that space. Now, I mentioned to you when I was showing you the slide with the entrance to the center that we have kitchens. So these are professional kitchens. There are two kitchens. They look, as you can see them in that slide, and they are used by catering students. We have a catering program where students work towards level 1 NVQ qualification. This is actually a new qualification we are running this year, and we chose the City and Guilds qualification because we felt that it was more practical and actually gave students more opportunity to experience and ensure in the future perhaps employment within catering industry. So this is the first year we are offering this qualification. So this is a learning curve for us, but we are very lucky. We have an experienced catering tutor. So we fingers crossed, you know, all students will be successful. But the kitchens are also used by students who have cooking on the timetable. And again, part of these sessions is that obviously our students have targets within 5 EHCP categories, and every student in the center will have adulthood and independence targets. So actually being able to sort of prepare a simple meal, recognize equipment, and sort of sustain any form of sort of independent life is our aim, and hence cooking on the timetable. We also have a flat. It's an area, as you can see, it's an area that's situated on the first floor of the center, and it has kitchen toilet and a separate bedroom area, which you can't see from that picture. But this is the area that's mainly used by complex needs students. So they will have independent living skills, and they are sort of based in the flat. They are not based in the kitchens. The kitchens are primarily for catering and MLD students, whereas the flat is used by students with more profound or severe needs. And the aim here really is to, again, encourage them to develop independent skills, be able to operate a washing machine, prepare a simple meal, prepare a hot drink, make a bed, tidy up the bathroom, sort out the clothing. So that's where they would be having these sessions. We have sports on our curriculum, and every group in the center will have a sports lesson. So what you can see is a very lovely picture of a sports hall. Now, if you sort of look, we also have a rebound room within that space. So the yellow door on my left is the rebound room. However, we don't use the rebound. It's not a room that can be accessed by anyone. We use it mainly for the students who need to self-regulate or who have rebound therapy on the EHCP plan. So that's where the PE sessions happen. Now we have two sensory rooms. So the room you are seeing here is situated on the ground floor, and it is used predominantly by complex needs students, profound and multiple learning difficulties students. We also have additional sensory room on the first floor. I would say the difference between the rooms is that this room has, I suppose, more pieces of equipment. So you can see what's on the floor is this interactive mat. There is change of colors in terms of lighting, music, wind machine, and other sensory bits of equipment. So obviously we cater for a lot of students who have quite profound sensory needs. And some of the sessions as well, if you think of lessons like Explore the World, they will take place in that space, because they can actually experience different temperatures, noises, music, and so on. So this is the sensory room, and we encourage students to use it as much as possible. Sometimes some students need time out, so this is true for both sensory rooms that we have in the center. Now we also have hydrotherapy room, and this is our hydrotherapy pool. It's not a swimming pool. It's actually quite a small pool, but the purpose of that pool is really to provide hydrotherapy for all students who have hydrotherapy as on the EHCP. So we have, in terms of clinical staff, we have speech and language therapists, we have physiotherapist, and we also have a nurse. So our lead physiotherapist is a person who is organizing and sort of having a rota of students who also can use hydrotherapy pool. So that's what you can see here. It's also set up in a sensory way, in a sense that there is lighting, the colors, music. So it can be a really lovely therapeutic space for those who love water and who are lucky to have it on their EHCPs. Now, in terms of our timetables, so I mentioned before that our complex needs students will have predominantly sensory curriculum. So they don't have English and maths as standalone subjects. These subjects are really embedded in other subjects they have on the timetable. What you are seeing here is an example of a timetable for an MLD student. So for these students, English and maths are standalone subjects, and then they will also have tutorial with their personal tutor. Every group have their own personal tutor. So this is like the main port of contact for parents and family members. If if the child is placed, let's say, with for argument's sake, Chris, and Chris is a personal tutor, Chris would be your first port of contact. Now, students are with us 4 days a week. In FE settings, 16 hours a week is what's viewed as full-time education. So obviously schools are different. Students are at schools 5 days a week, probably between 9 and 3:30 or 3:45, depending on the school. For us, it's a 16-hour of education that constitutes full-time education. So what happens when a young person joins us, they are obviously allocated to the program that's suitable for them, and they will be with us 4 days a week. Now, the lessons start between 10 and 12, and then there is another lesson in the afternoon between 1 and 3. They have a 1-hour lunch break between 12 and 1. Now, what it really means that students start arriving to college around 9:30. Now, a lot of our students are coming on the transport from the local authority, but some of them are independent travelers and others are actually brought by the family members. So the students arrive about 9:30, they come to the Atrium, subject to whether they are independent enough, they can go on their own to the classrooms, or we use a lot of walkie-talkies, so they would be greeted, and then someone from the support team comes and collects them, takes them to the classroom. Now, they will have one day that they are not in college, and this day remains the day off for the whole academic year. Now, we are not able to offer any additional activities on that day off. So I suppose a lot of our students will have activities that are provided by social services, or some of them will have work experience placements that they can do on the day off, but they are expected to be in college 4 days a week between roughly 10 and 3 o'clock. Now, again, the lessons finish at 3, and then students will leave the college. Those who are coming on transport from local authorities, they will be again called as the buses approach. So we are trying to be quite organized, and then they leave there. But usually the sort of the collection starts between 3 and 3:30, I would say. Now, in terms of our programs, so the idea of STEPS is a sort of new idea, but we cater for students who are on, if you want to sort of look at the spectrum, the students who are pre-entry, very low milestones in terms of milestone 2 or 3, and then we sort of cater for students who are milestone 8, entry 1, entry 1, entry 2, and then entry 2, entry 3 programs. And then progression for the learners who reach this level will be mainstream courses for some of them, who are part of our foundation learning department. Now, what I wanted to also mention is that students, so the application process for us is different than for any mainstream course. So normally what happens when, let's say, if I wanted to study accountancy course, I can apply online, I can be assessed, I am then sort of told whether I meet the criteria for the course I have chosen, and in some cases I may have to pay a fee. It's subject to my financial sort of circumstances and whether I am on certain types of benefits. I may not have to pay, but for some courses I will have to pay. That's the mainstream application process. In terms of supported learning, and that's true for students with EHCPs really across the college, so supported learning and also mainstream students with EHCPs, we operate something that's we call a consultation process. So basically what happens is that a young person has an EHCP review at school, and during that review, family, young person, everyone involved in that young person's care will decide what the next step is. So let's say that for argument's sake, it has been decided that this young person is coming to Barnet and Southgate College. So part of the EHCP review meeting is that local authority, SCN department should attend. So then let's say the preference is identified as being, for argument's sake of that presentation, Barnet Southgate College. So then the local authority, SCN department, will send a consultation to the college. Now, what it essentially is, it's request for a place. So they are not very often, I mean, in some cases, in case of mainstream students, there could be a request for a specific place on a specific course, for example, accountancy. But for supported learning, it's a request for a place in the center. So what then happens, we read documents about the student, and obviously COVID has not been our friend here, because during both lockdowns, we were unable to have any visitors on site. We haven't had an open day. We haven't been able to invite anyone to a face-to-face assessments. We also haven't been able to see students in their school settings. So this, I suppose, has been really difficult for us. But in a COVID-free environment, we would be able to read the documentation, also contact the school, arrange visits to school, observe a young person in the environment, or invite some young people to assessments in a college. And we would then ascertain the level and what they need, and assign them to a program. So consultations are not for a specific course or program, they are for a place in the center. Of course, we would always listen to a young person and families, and if someone says, for example, my son or my daughter, they would like really to do catering, we would assess them in relation to the course, but we would also, in some cases, it may be that it's a perfectly suitable course, but for some young people, we may say, look, the young person, they need to really develop the English skills, math skills, social skills, whatever it is, before they can progress to catering. Because obviously catering students, they will be working towards level 1 qualification, and they are also doing qualification in terms of food hygiene. So they would have to have a certain level of literacy, numeracy, and so on in order to succeed on the program. So we would then assess a young person, place them on a program, and essentially, we have to respond to the local authority and say, yes, we can meet that young person's needs. In rare cases, we may not be able to meet a young person's needs. I think what I really would like to stress, because I think as parents, I would encourage you to see as many provisions as you can, because only you know your child and only you know what's the best placement for your child. I think, it would be dishonest of me to say, Barnet and Southgate College is the best place for any young person with SEN, because it's not the case. Now, in some cases, when we have to refuse a consultation, we are really, it's not about a young person not being good for us or suitable for us. It's actually us not being suitable for that young person, because every young person with EHCP, regardless of their learning needs, physical needs, medical needs, they deserve a place in education. They deserve a place in a placement where all their needs can be met. And obviously, if we can't meet these needs because of, for example, the layout of the college, this is nothing to do with that young person, because they are perfect as they are. It's just that our setup is not really either safe for them or suitable for them. So I give you an example. You saw some of the slides that I shown you, and obviously we are quite an open center. there. We have quite an open layout. During breaks, we are quite a busy environment, quite a noisy environment. We have students in the atrium, students in the corridors. So for a young person whose sensory needs may be such that they, for example, cannot tolerate noises and they cannot really tolerate busyness, we are just not the right provider. There is nothing wrong with not tolerating busyness. It's just that they deserve a place where they can actually have quite a quiet environment, maybe with a room that they can go to and sort of stay there without any interruptions. So I think the refusals really are not on the basis that the young person is not good for us, because every person deserves the best. It's just that we are not really equipped to meet their needs appropriately. And of course, in terms of the building, there is very little we can do to modify the building, or sort of, we can't have additional entrance, or we can't have a room that's quiet if the whole layout of the college of the center is quite busy. But once this consultation is received, and once we assess the young person, we have to reply to the local authority, and then we will have to say, yes, we can meet that person's needs. And that essentially means that the person will be joining us. Now, the consultation process is a lengthy process, and I think obviously there is a CN code of conduct which sort of talks about the guidelines that the whole process should be finished by the end of March, but it's not really happening. And I think, again, it's not just our fault, is also local authorities. We in fact, we are still receiving consultations for this academic year, but the process really roughly should take place between, well, now and sort of March, April, May, when we are getting consultations, we are looking at them. Now, we don't have any feeder school, we don't have any sort of preferred schools or preferred local authorities. Obviously, our two main local authorities is Barnet and Enfield, but actually we have students from Haringey, we have students from Islington, we have had students in the past from Kensington and Westminster and Kensington. We even had consultation from Ealing. So we work with quite a few local authorities, and we just look at consultations as they come in. So we don't have any preferences where the young person is from which local authority. Now, what I haven't mentioned, but I'm going to mention now, we also have a provision called Course Link. So within LLDD Center, we have 24 programs. And as I mentioned to you before, they are programs that sort of cater for students with profound learning difficulties. We have 3 sort of pathways. We have a skills pathway, a work pathway, and a college pathway. And the main sort of distinction really is that the skills pathway is for students who need to sort of develop their skills, be it social skills, independent skills, adulthood. And then the work path is probably more for students who may prefer progression to supported internship or workplaces. And then college pathway, for the lack of a better word, is a more academic pathway, if I can call it this way. So quite a few students from that pathway will go to courses in mainstream or different provisions. But really, progression to mainstream is possible for a student from a pathway, work pathway or skills pathway, the same way as supported internship is possible for a student from a work pathway and college pathway. Now, a course link provision is a program designed for 16 to 18-year-olds who are recovering from mental health conditions. So the profile of the students on this program is changing slightly, in a sense that a few years ago, we have had the students on this program had no EHCPs. But what we've noticed in the last couple of years, the local authorities started issuing more and more EHCPs in relation to mental health needs. So we actually this year have about 5 students out of 9 that have EHCPs. So this program was designed originally as a stepping stone program. So we had students who are quite academically able, but for example, through depression, social anxiety, social phobia, they are not really, they either didn't engage with school a lot, or they couldn't sustain a mainstream program. So the main differences between this program and, for example, a mainstream course would be that the aim is for them to get English qualifications, English and maths qualification, functional skills, and also get used to college life. So they are in college as well 4 days a week, 16 hours a week, but their groups are smaller because this group is never bigger than 10 students. They have in-class support, and the in-class support, the group support is there regardless whether students have EHCPs or not. But obviously for those who have EHCPs, the students will also have additional support if that's what the EHCP says. So they are having 14 hours of study, and then they have 2 hours of like support-led activities. But the aim is for them to really get used to the college, gain confidence, be in a smaller group. The start as well, they don't start earlier than 10 o'clock, and they don't finish very late. So some mainstream courses, students may finish at 5 or 5:30, whereas these students will finish about 3:30, maximum 4, so they don't feel, you know, that it's too late or too dark, because there is a lot of anxiety for the students, and they are on this program for a reason. So this is a program that I suppose the entry criteria is slightly higher. Students should be around entry 3 in English and maths, and the idea is that they gain qualification in level 1 or level 2 and then move to mainstream course when they can then access GCSEs as well. Now, I've talked quite a lot, and I hope you are still awake there. I can't see anyone. I just wanted to say that on the screen here, you can see my email address and my colleague's Azima, who was meant to be here with me today, but she had family emergency. Also, there is a consultation mailbox, which actually, if you had any questions about consultation process, you may choose to send your inquiry there. And this is where local authorities are meant to send consultations for young people. So we've already started receiving consultations, and for next academic year, and we've already had, I think, 6. So this is very early, but we are now expecting to start receiving these consultations. Now, I just wanted to add one more thing, that although we have 180 to 100 and sort of 200 students, depending on the year, it doesn't mean that all these students are leavers. So on average, students are with us 3 years, but it's not 100% guaranteed. So the students apply with the consultation is for a year. So the students apply for to be with us for academic year. Our academic year is very similar to schools, at least in Barnet and Enfield. So we start in the 2nd week of September, and we end the academic year ends at the end of June, sort of the 1st or 2nd of July. We follow the same calendar in terms of study breaks, half terms, Christmas, Easter breaks, and so on. The students are with us 35 weeks a year, and now so that's the setup, but the students apply. The consultation is for 1 year, and every year we have a legal obligation. It's a right of a young person with EHCP to have an EHCP review. So we will be organizing these EHCP reviews, and obviously parents are invited, guardians are invited, social workers, any sort of professional working with a young person will be invited. And during that EHCP review, we will have a conversation about the young person's progress and what their progression is. So for majority of our students, the progression will be within a center. And I would say majority of the students here will stay with us 3 years, because obviously we will have to demonstrate that they make academic progress. But it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed from the start. So every year the process is repeated. And for some students, we had students in the past who were with us only for 1 year. And then obviously they may have moved on to either supported internship or a mainstream course on a different college. Sometimes we have students that are here couple of years. Very rarely we will have a student who is with us for the 4th year. I mean, there are, I suppose, 4th years are usually discussed on individual basis, and there have to be some sort of really reasons for either amazing progress, or maybe sometimes in the past we had a situation that someone was granted the 4th year because the 3rd year they were really unwell and they spent most of it in hospital. So obviously the local authority agreed to grant the 4th year. But for example, during COVID, during the lockdowns, it was quite challenging for us because we had to move to online delivery. And for a lot of students, because they were medically vulnerable and they were told to shield, it was very difficult for them to actually access education, although we did our best. However, this was not a reason for local authorities asking for additional year. In fact, all local authorities said, well, the whole country, the whole world was in the same situation. So they didn't feel that it was appropriate, and 4th years were not granted on the basis of lockdowns and COVID. But I think, you know, obviously we are hoping not to have any more lockdowns, but I think under the circumstances, we could have done better. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but I think we did relatively well, considering that we remained open for throughout all the lockdowns since March 2019. We were open for about 30 to 40 young people who were vulnerable from the point of safeguarding, but also for those whose parents were key workers. But like I said, for a lot of our students, they had to remain at home, and because they were viewed as medically vulnerable. So yes, so that's I think the end of my stream of consciousness presentation. I hope you found it useful. What I am going to do now, I am just going to stop sharing my screen, and I think we can move in. I'm quickly looking at my watch. It's 8 minutes past 6, so it looks like we have about 23 minutes of question time. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and I'm going to look at the questions that I've got, because I think I've already have some questions. So let me quickly check. I don't think I have any questions. Sorry, the webinar questions. I don't think I have any questions. So if you would like, I don't know if you have any questions, I will wait now. And maybe if anyone has any questions, I will encourage you to actually okay, sorry. So there is a question, I can see it now. How can we determine which pathway our child will follow to know which course to help them apply for? Does this get highlighted on the EHCP? What pathways are suitable for students with SLD but who have speech problems? So I think, okay, so if you choose for your child to come to Barnet and Southgate College, college, a consultation is going to come to the EHCP consultation box. So this is a consultation for the whole college. We actually had a bit of a restructure in a sense that in the past we had our own high needs placement officer, and then the rest of the college had their own high needs placement officer, but it's changed now. So there is one EHCP team led by a lady called Simone, and the consultations come to her. So when I suppose you don't need to worry about the pathway. I think what you should really think is whether we are a suitable provider. And then once, I am assuming that the question will be about LLDD center. So if the consultation is for LLDD center program, the consultation will be sent to Azima and I. We will look at EHCP. We will then allocate one of the tutors to assess a young person, or we organize a visit to school subject to what's easier, because with some of the schools, especially where we have our complex needs students from, we would then visit the school and actually do assessments of few students at a time rather than asking them individually to come to college. And that way we would obviously speak to you as well, speak to the young person if it's possible, and ascertain what are their interests, what their cognitive levels are, what their academic levels are, and what pathway they are suitable for. There is another question. Did you say it is a different entrance for the LLDD students? No, the entrance for LLDD students, so obviously the entrance to the college is the same for everyone. I was talking about the entrance to the center, that you were entering the center. Obviously the LLDD students are, well, again, during COVID time, we had to remain in a bubble, but for our students, we don't encourage segregation. In fact, we encourage integration. So our students are allowed, they are encouraged to go to the canteen to get their meals. If some of them will bring their own lunches, but some of them are entitled to free school meals, so they may want to purchase lunch in the college canteen, and we would absolutely encourage that. So we wouldn't have separate entrances. We don't have separate entrances. I mean, obviously we have a separate building, so the entrance to that building is separate to mainstream students. We wouldn't have mainstream students in LLDD center, but they would be coming through the same entrance to the college. Just depending on the building, there would be different entrances to the building. The next question, is it possible to apply to more than one provision and more than one college? Absolutely, yes. So this consultation process is a bit like, I suppose, applying for universities. You can apply for universities, more than one, and then essentially each provider will have to, so you may go, let's say you may see however many providers, and you may then decide, actually I like provider A, provider B, and provider C. So the consultations can go to three providers assess, and then you, at the end of the day, you are choosing which provider your child wants to go to. So it is possible to have consultations sent to multiple providers. Another question, what happens if we select the college and you say no in May, or how many students per class? Okay, so legally there is a specific amount of time that we have to respond. So if, let's say, your consultation came to us now, we can't keep you waiting till May. What we would have to do, I mean, legally, I think it's a 2-week period. If it's 15 days that we have to respond within. In some cases, we may be, obviously we read EHCP, we may quickly call the school, we may say absolutely fine, we can meet the needs, we respond to the local authority. In some cases, when we were not sure, or EHCP is not very sort of informative, we may then respond to local authority and actually say, you know what, we are unable to reach that decision within 2 weeks. We think we can meet this young person's needs, but actually what we need is a bit more time because we need to see them at school, or we need to speak to school, or we need to speak to parents, or we need to invite them for assessment. But this wouldn't be, we would never sort of wait till May to tell you no. So this is not the case. In terms of how many students per class, again, we have, so it varies. For profound learning difficulties, we have about 6 students in the class. Then in our complex needs provision, but groups that students do not have profound physical difficulties, we would have up to 7. And then in MLD provision, it's between 8 and 12. But 12 are, for example, performing arts, these sort of groups where there is less support really needed because of student needs. So maximum 12, minimum 5 or 6, depending on the group. Our groups at the moment do not have 12. We have groups that, one group that has 11 students, and obviously, you know, during COVID, it was quite difficult because our rooms had certain capacity. We can't make them bigger, and students will have support with them as well. So in terms of support as well, sorry, I have a message here. If Nick, you can hear me, that the chat is disabled, but I think it works now because I have some other questions there. So I don't know what happened. Essentially, we obviously had to make sure that this safety of you know, spacing of 2 meters or 1 meter for SEN students, we abided by. So yes, between 5 and 12 students. Okay, what is the classroom teacher student ratio? So we will have one teacher in a class. The number of students depends on the group, so between 5, 6 and 12, but we also have support. So the way support is allocated, so for argument's sake, if we are in a group of 10, and let's say 3 students within that group have one-to-ones, so we will have 3 teaching assistants who provide this one-to-one support, plus a group support. So there would be, let's say, 10 students, 4 study support assistants, and the teacher. Now, of course, not every student has one-to-one in the EHCP plan, and we can only provide what EHCP says. So I think it's also quite important that if you know your children best, if you feel that a young person needs one-to-one support, it should clearly be written in EHCP that they require support. Otherwise, the local authority will not authorize funding for that. So, sorry, now my questions are jumbled. So, sorry, okay, what is the student to classroom student ratio? Do you have a hydrotherapy pool on site? Are your staff used to using pod books, Toby communication devices? Right, we have hydrotherapy pool on site. Again, hydrotherapy is only for students who have it on the EHCP. Yes, we do use a number of communication devices. So we use pod books, eye gaze, switches. It depends what a young person has, but essentially whatever communication device they use, we would have to get familiar with it. And if we don't know this communication device, we would have to have training about it. But yes, they do use communication devices. Is there a disabled toilet in a school? Yes. So the center has disabled toilets. There are disabled, so we have obviously, we have a disabled toilet upstairs, and we have 3 toilets downstairs, and we also have a disabled toilet in the flat. So yes, we do. We have hoists. So obviously we have students who are completely independent. We have students who need a certain degree of support with toileting. So it could be something like, you know, wash your hands, just overseeing. But we also have students who need personal care. And obviously we are providing this personal care for those who are not able to provide it for themselves. Is it fee required for the course? No. So the actually the reason why we have consultation processes, or colleges have consultation processes with local authorities, is because very often the cost of support and the cost of sort of having a young person in the center is quite significant. Because if you can imagine, there are young people who will have one-to-one support, input from a nurse, input from a speech and language therapist, input from physiotherapists. Some of them may have hydrotherapy as well. So obviously the costs are quite high. And by consulting us, the local authorities agree to pay the costs. So we've never had a student that parents paid themselves. We always have students who have EHCPs, and the local authorities, by consulting us, actually agree that this is a right placement for the young person, and they will pay the fees. So the parents would never pay fees themselves. I would like to know whether there is nurse in the college in order to meet my son's medical needs emergencies. Yes, we do have nurse on site. She's with us 5 days a week. She's working full time. She's employed by the college. So absolutely, I mean, you know, she's very good. Her attendance is very good. But in case if she's not around, we always try to get a nurse cover from agency. And yes, we have nurse on site. Since the LLDD students are vulnerable, does someone watch them while at lunch and break to make sure they are okay? Yes. So the students who have one-to-one support, that one-to-one support is with them throughout the year, throughout the day. So basically, when a student arrives at 9:30, they will be, or 9:45, whatever, they will be greeted by the member of support staff. They are taken to the class, and the support team will be with them throughout the whole day, all lunch breaks and lunchtime. Now, we have some students who are independent, and we have some students who are independent travelers, and they can actually leave the site and go to the high street and get, I don't know, Kentucky Fried Chicken or McDonald's, and that's fine. But for most of our students, the support team is with them. So the way we sort of try to work it out, that obviously support members of staff are human as well, they need a break, but a member of a team is always there, so they are never left unattended. My child is 16. When will he apply? Well, most of our students are sort of 18, 19. But I mean, I suppose it depends what happens at school. If your son is in school now, I suppose EHCP review will be a place when it's discussed what happens next for him. So technically, we don't have students who are younger than 16, but we have a few 16-year-olds, but these are rare. Most students will be around 18, 19. And they will stay with us, like I said, on average 3 years, but a 16-year-old can apply. Are there any physical therapist classes for the disabled adults to maintain functional ability? Yes, so we have a physiotherapist, and she is, again, her input is subject to EHCP plans. So I can confidently say that all complex needs students or profound multiple learning difficulties students, they have input from physiotherapist. We don't have separate classes. Obviously, if a young person has hydrotherapy, then absolutely they will have a session of hydrotherapy. But what we are trying to do is that therapy is integrated within lessons. So if a young person needs to stand in a frame, this can happen during lessons. They can obviously spend their breaks as well doing activities. So a physiotherapist and her team are sort of seeing students throughout the college day, and they are not specifically pulled out for that activity. It's part of everything else they are doing. Any chance of knowing other colleges that have learning disabilities courses? I wouldn't be able to comment because I don't know. I mean, obviously there is the local colleges, there is Cornell, there is Oaklands. I wouldn't be the best person to comment because I simply don't know what they offer. But as I said earlier on, I would encourage you all to see as many provisions as possible, because like I said, only you know what's suitable for your child, and only you know your child best. So I would say, I know that sometimes it can sound like, oh, I have to now see other provisions, but I think you should, because at worst you are wasting an hour of your time, but you may actually find something there that you think, wow, this provision is so much better than the provision I saw before. So, but I don't know what they offer. That's a short answer, well, long-winded answer to a short question. Have you got any sensory garden in the college? Okay, we don't have a massive garden. We have a bit of a garden sort of at the back of the LLDD center, but it's not a massive garden, but it's sort of the classrooms downstairs open to the garden, and students do have sensory gardening. They do some planting, and obviously we secured some funding, so we are hoping to have really nice benches and tables, so students do spend time and have lessons in that garden, but it's not a massive garden, no. Is the SEN unit based in the Barnet or Southgate campus? It's Southgate campus, so it's 2 minutes away from Southgate station. So it's N14 6B for Bravo, S for sugar. That's the postcode. We have 5 minutes. Do you have any AAC devices for communication? Yes, we do. Some students have their own communication devices, like I mentioned, Podbook, iGaze, switches. Some have specific software, so we are using them. How many speech and language people do you have on site? We have 2 speech and language therapists. And they are working, they have sort of like allocated workload, and they are working with students who have speech and language therapy on the EHCP. What do you do during community? Where are they going? Hey, that's interesting. I can honestly say that since March 2019, the students haven't been out and about. So we are still not having approval for any trips at the moment. So we are waiting for it to see what happens next. In the past, students were accessing local parks, high street, ASDA shops. Some of them were going on trips. So we had some seaside trips, some trips to museum, but for the last 2 years, we haven't had any access to community actually because of lockdown. Okay, who would provide OT input if it's in the EHCP? Okay, so in the past, we were always saying that we do not have OT, but actually we have a new head and we have a new regime. So if we needed an OT, we would obviously have OT on site for however amount of time is needed, and the cost would be then charged to the local authorities. So if we needed to have an OT, we would have to engage with that service. And I think the last question, which is very timely, I have 3 minutes. If you put I think more than one college down, how does that work when you have your annual review and someone has to attend from the college? I don't really know what this means. I mean, the annual review, so obviously we only attend annual reviews if a student is our student. So if a young person is enrolled with us, then we will be attending, you can have a consultation. I don't know if I apologize if I misunderstood the question, but I think you can have consultations sent to more than one provider, but at the end of the day, you will need need to just focus on a one provider you want. And obviously that provider, when your child is enrolled on a program in that college or in that establishment, they will be organizing EHCP review, and then they will be obviously sending invites. So normally what happens, we have EHCP team that will attend the meeting, the personal tutor, and all professionals working with the young person, as well as a parent, and as well as a young person, if it's appropriate, and if they can attend and contribute. We always insist that a young person does come to the meeting. Obviously, some young people are more verbal and more able to contribute than others, but it shouldn't stop us, because even a student who is non-verbal can still come and communicate via their communication device. So I hope I've answered all the questions. No, I have more. Do you provide any holidays provision? No, we do not. Doesn't someone have to attend the EHCP from the old school? No, they don't. So obviously we can ask, we can contact them for certain information at the beginning of academic year, but we would not ask them to attend the EHCP review, because really the EHCP review is just attended by educational establishment that a young person is currently enrolled in. We wouldn't be sort of looking for the previous educational providers, so the old school would not attend. But obviously this year the EHCP review will be happening in your child's current educational setting. I'm just quickly scrolling. I think I've just answered all the questions. I don't know how well I did, but I think I've just answered all the questions, and we have 1 minute to go. So I don't know if there are any other questions. And like I said, I can't see anyone, but I wanted to thank you for your patience, and I hope you found the information useful. If you need anything, please, let me know. I don't know, I think Nick put my email address in the chat, so please feel free to email me. I will try to respond in a timely fashion, although sometimes there is an overload of emails, so please forgive me if I don't do it within the day. We also have an open day on-site event, first in 2 years, on the 20th. So if you wanted to attend that event, please book through Barnet Southgate College website. If you go to Google and type Barnet Southgate College Open Days, it should bring up all the Open Days events, including the on-site events, which the next one is happening on the 20th of November. But it's not a drop-in session, so you have to register your interest. Sorry, I have now more questions. Thanks for all the information. Please send us the recording. Oh, Nick, it's going to be on you to send the recording. I don't have a recording, but I'm sure my colleague will send it. Also, if you go on the website and you actually type Barnet Southgate College Supported Learning, there is some information there. There is a recording of me and the head of the department, Julie. I mean, it was done during COVID, so we couldn't include the students, but we are hoping we will be including students, in the next recording, because I think it's really important that they talk about the provision rather than we talk about the provision. So I think we came to the end of the session. Like I said, thank you very much for attending, being patient, and if you need anything, please feel free to ring me or email me. You have my email address, and hopefully I see you all and your lovely young people in our college. But like I said, please look at other provisions, because I suppose knowledge is power, and you can then make the best choice for the young person. And I think that's who counts, really. None of us would be here if young people didn't want to come to our provision. So I think they are the key in all of this. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye bye.